Today, we're jumping right into one of the most unbelievable political stories of the year. It's a development that sent shockwaves across the globe, and it all starts in Caracas.
It all kicked off with this headline. I mean, just let that sink in. Newsrooms everywhere were scrambling, trying to figure out if it was real, but the reports were true. Jamaican dancehall icon Vybz Kartel was now, somehow, leading the Venezuelan government. So the big question is, how on earth did this happen?
Well, to really get a handle on this, you have to understand the situation in Venezuela. The country has been stuck for months in this intense political gridlock, with huge economic pressure building up. And it's in the middle of all that chaos that officials made a move nobody, and I mean nobody, saw coming.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting. The official reason they gave for this appointment is something else. Government sources cited a critical shortage of boss energy. They actually defined it as a total failure of the political establishment to command the respect, or maybe even the fear, that they felt was needed to get the country back on track.
And this quote from an unnamed official really sums up their entire thought process. They said that while every other leader was getting bogged down in policy talk, Kartel just radiates authority. The thinking was, his kind of command is exactly what they needed to bring back some order.
And you won't believe this, the market actually reacted immediately. Reports started coming in that the country's currency, the Bolivar, had ticked up just a little bit. The unofficial reason floating around, it strengthened out of respect. That just shows you the level of influence people perceived right from the get-go.
So, okay, the whole world is watching, right? What does President Kartel do? He delivers his first address to the nation. It was broadcast over a speakerphone, and it definitely set a very clear, very direct tone for his new administration.
His entire plan was basically 3 points. Point 1, straight to it, cheap gas for everyone.
Point 2, just as direct, tackling the food crisis.
And his final point? A simple, powerful declaration of war. No nuance, just pure force.
The entire speech was over and done in 90 seconds flat before the line just cut out. And get this, aides later claimed it wasn't a technical problem. No, they framed it as a deliberate choice, a symbolic rejection of long speeches that have dominated politics forever. Right after that address, things moved fast. It was time to put together a cabinet. The appointments were described as reflecting real-world governance experience, and they were, let's just say, highly unconventional.
So let's just run through a few of these key roles. The new Minister of Defense. Anybody way big enough. Minister of Finance. The man who keep the books quiet. The Ministry of Culture was given to every DJ at once. And Foreign Affairs was handed to whoever can translate this.
Naturally, people wondered how this new government would handle foreign policy. When a spokesperson was asked, the answer was as confident as it was short. Them will adjust. The message couldn't be clearer. The world will have to get used to Venezuela, not the other way around.
So you can imagine the world had thoughts. Let's dig into how everyone reacted, both on the global stage and for the people actually on the ground in Venezuela. Basically, the international community was just completely baffled. Most world leaders put out these very cautious statements about monitoring the situation. You had news anchors replaying the clips over and over as if to convince themselves it was real. The UN even called an emergency meeting that reportedly ended when the delegates just threw up their hands and admitted they didn't have a framework for this.
But on the streets of Caracas, it was a totally different vibe. Yeah, there was confusion for sure, but underneath it all, there was this surprising wave of optimism. Pretty much everyone seemed to agree on one thing. For the first time in years, a political announcement actually sounded confident. And this quote from a resident in Caracas just nails that feeling perfectly. It wasn't about whether they agreed with his policies, not really. It was about the sound of decisive leadership, the sound of someone who wasn't asking for permission to be in charge.
So what's the actual game plan? What are the goals, and how long is this interim government even supposed to last? What's the path forward?
Well, according to official sources, there are 3 potential endpoints for the Kartel presidency. It'll stay in place until new elections can be held, or until stability is restored, or, and this is a direct quote from the source, until Spotify Wrapped season ends, whichever of those happens first.
As for their top priorities, they're pretty ambitious. They want to restore the country's crucial oil production, restructure the national debt, and, this is a wild one, they want to literally introduce a law that would officially ban weak leadership. You know, as this whole thing unfolded, a banner popped up in downtown Caracas that just seemed to capture the entire mood. It read, "From dancehall to downfall, Vybz still run things." It's a strange thing to say during a political crisis maybe, but it taps into this deeper feeling we're seeing everywhere, that sometimes the vibe of a leader can feel just as important as the actual substance.
Of course, it's really important to point out that the source material for this entire story is a work of satire. It's a fictional piece, yes, but it uses that fiction to ask a very real question about what exactly we're looking for in our leaders today.